Hello and welcome to our weekly show. I'm Dalil Cradley and here are today's stories.
This young guy was in Tahrir Square 8 months ago, and here he comes again in a protest organized by the Coalition of the Youth of the Revolution to condemn the military council extension of the emergencies law. The demonstration started from Tahrir Square to the government headquarters.
قلنا النهارده عشان مطلب يعني الحاجات العسكريه بنطالب عليه من زمان ما اتعملش، وزاد عليه قانون الطوارئ اللي هو ذريعه لاي حاجه ان هي تحصل تحت قانون الطوارئ، واللي هو كان انا فاكر على المطالب اللي كانت على مره كان رقم 3 بعد اسقاط الرئيس وحل مجلس الشعب والشورى، ودي حاجه لحد دلوقتي يعني بنعملها مش بنبطلها.
قانون الطوارئ يقول لك احنا عملناه للبلطجيه، ما البلطجيه مالوا الشوارع، يجيب لنا مسك مين من البلطجيه يطلعهم يقول انا مسكت البلطجيه، لكن للاسف هو بيمسك شباب الثوره، سجون الحربيه مليانه بشباب الثوره.
Although 19 political movements and parties joined the event, participation was low, just right after a similar protest on Friday organized by other movements.
النهارده يوم عمل وفي ناس كتير عندها شغل، والنهارده اول اسبوع الدراسي وكده، فاحنا مش متضايقين. احنا احنا من الناس، معظم الناس دي من النشطاء اللي ابتدوا الثوره من قبل الثوره، وكنا بننزل، كنا من 50 واحد وبرضه بننزل. فالمظاهرات الصغيره برضه ليها اثر وليها رساله وبتوصل الرساله، وده عملنا ان احنا نكمل الضغط. ساعات تبقى مظاهرات كبيره، ساعات تبقى مليونيه، مش لازم كل مظاهره تبقى مليونيه وتبقى عدد كبير.
Some protesters believe the date and the repetition won't matter as long as things did not change. Others think that Monday's protest was intended to be different.
احنا قررنا ان احنا نغير التوجه، مش لازم بس يوم الجمعة، عشان الناس اللي هي بتبقى موجودة في مناطق في وسط البلد اللي بيشتغلوا او في الشوارع ياخدوا بالهم مننا ويعرفوا ان احنا موضوعنا مش بس يوم الجمعة، احنا مكملين المسار ضد قانون الطوارئ، ضد المحاكمات العسكرية، ضد قانون تجريم الإضرابات، وضد أي حاجة بتنتهك حرية الإنسان المصري اللي هو اكتسبها في ثورة 25 يناير.
أنا بشوف إن كل واحد من حقه إنه يعبر عن رأيه بغض النظر عن التوقيت، بغض النظر عن المكان.
Whether Monday or Friday, protesters see no difference as their goal is to increase the pressure to achieve their demands of cancelling military trials for civilians, suspending the emergencies law, and granting Egyptians their right to strike. Aisha Al-Haddad, AUC TV, Cairo.
The Egyptian Ministry of Information decided to freeze issuing licenses for new private satellite channels on temporary basis. Our reporter Zainab Daba has investigated the matter.
The Egyptian Ministry of Information decided to freeze issuing licenses for new private satellite channels. They say it is a measure against increasingly media chaos, which is a threat to Egypt's national security. After the 25th of January revolution, 15 new private satellite channels have already obtained licenses to broadcast on Egypt's Nilesat. Some media experts see that the government has the right to freeze licenses if private television satellite channels do not abide by the law.
هو مهم جدا تقنين ترخيص القنوات الفضائية، ومهم جدا انه نقف وقفة نبتدي نشوف القوانين بتقول ايه ونبتدي ناخد، لانه حصل مجموعة فعلا طلعت كتيرة قوي وبتطلع سواء كانت على النايل سات او على اقمار صناعية اخرى بنفس الفوت برنت بتاع النايل سات، فبتطلع بتنزل لنا على النايل سات. فاحنا لازم نقنن ونبتدي نمسك ونقول نشوف القانون بيقول ايه. لو القانون بيسمح بوجود قنوات حزبية أو قنوات على أساس ديني أو قنوات ليها صبغة دينية أو صبغة حزبية أو ليها صبغة قبلية، يبقى هنا أنا أسمح بالقنوات اللي ممكن تطلع دي. ولكن النهاردة القانون ما بيسمحش بالحاجات دي، فالقنوات دي طلعت إزاي وطلعت ليه؟ فأنا أعتقد أنه مهم جدا يكون في وقفة مع القنوات دي.
While others see that the decision should not have been executed in this manner, calling for reformulation of media regulations in Egypt.
طبعا أنا ضد أي قرار إداري أو سياسي أو أمني يتخذ تجاه أي وسيلة إعلام مهما كانت الذرائع والمسببات، وهذا القرار أنا بعتبره قرارا خاطئا وأعطى انطباعا للمجال العام في مصر وأيضا للخارج بأن ربما السلطة الموجودة راهنا تريد أن تفرض قيودا على حرية الإعلام، وهي حرية انتزعت كما تعلمين بعد ثورة 25 يناير. لكن هذا الأمر لا يبرئ بعض وسائل الإعلام التي تعمل في مصر الآن من كونها تمارس بعض التجاوزات الكبيرة، وهذه التجاوزات ربما تدفعنا لا إلى الغلق ولكن إلى إعادة تنظيم هذا القطاع. إعادة تنظيم قطاع الإعلام في مصر وصناعة الإعلام في مصر مسألة ضرورية جدا جدا يجب أن يتم النظر إليها بشكل سريع وفعال في هذه الفترة بالذات.
However, Human Rights Watch representatives see that this decision is a crackdown on the freedom of media.
No, I think this is a negative decision, and I think this is a clear violation of Egypt's obligations to provide for freedom of expression and freedom of the media. A government doesn't have the right to place a general ban or to stop issuing licenses for satellite television stations.
This measure is seen as a setback for the revolution, according to Dr. Rasha Abdallah, AUC Mass Communication professor.
I think it's a very unfortunate move. We all went out on January 25th asking for more freedom, not for less freedom.
Laws and regulations governing the media in Egypt have always been a controversial issue. And now, after the 25th of January revolution, this controversy still persists. Zainab Daba, ECTV, Cairo.
Independence has always been a demand of Egyptian universities, but after 25th of January revolution, it seems like it is possible to obtain it. However, private universities that are assumed to have more freedom are less able to make the choice of their leaders. Safa Ali reports.
Independence in Egyptian university has become a public demand among professors. The university's regulating law of 1972 allowed the dean for every school to be elected, while high governmental authorities assigned the university's presidents, until 1994, when even deans were assigned to positions.
أولاً رئيس الجمهورية هو اللي بيعين رئيس الجامعة، رئيس الجمهورية هو اللي بيعين وكلاء رئيس الجامعة ونوابه، أما فيما يتعلق بعمداء الكليات فبيتم تعيينهم من قبل رئيس الجامعة بشكل مباشر. الوضع مختلف في الجامعات الخاصة لأن اللي بيحط شروط تعيين القيادات الجامعية هو مجلس أمناء الجامعات الخاصة، ولكن هناك شرط وحيد هو ألا يكون أعضاء هيئة التدريس المرشحين لهذا المنصب شغلوا هذا المنصب في الجامعات الحكومية. هذا هو الشرط الوحيد، أما بقية التفاصيل فبيتم وضعها من قبل مجلس أمناء الجامعات الخاصة.
بقى لنا فترة بنطالب بعودة الانتخابات، وبعد ثورة يناير اشتدت هذه المطالبة، فدلوقتي احنا في مرحلة تغيير، ويجب انه يكون هناك انتخاب لعمداء ورؤساء الجامعات عشان يبقى في مشاركة حقيقية من أعضاء التدريس في تقرير سياسات الجامعة، ويقدروا ان هم يحسوا انه الجامعة دي بتاعتهم، وان هم اللي بياخدوا فيها قرارات مش جهات خارجية بناء على قرارات سياسية أو أمنية.
On the contrary, those calls for independence do not take place in private universities.
بيختار القيادات أو العميد في الجامعة عادة صاحب رأس المال اللي مؤسس الجامعة، لأن هو بيبقى عايز حد بيأيد الفكر بتاعه اللي هو ماشي عليه في الجامعة، مش عايز حد يوجع له دماغه من الآخر، يعني مش عايز حد يقول له نجح أو ما تنجحش، التعليم ده فاشل، هات أجهزة، هات معدات، هات حاجات للجامعة، الجامعة فيها إمكانيات ناقصة، وعايز حد يمشي له أموره، فمش ممكن يجيب حد كويس في كل الأحوال.
While at the American University in Cairo, it is a different case.
الجامعة الوحيدة اللي يعني فيها هيكل أكاديمي ثابت إلى حد ما هو الجامعة الأمريكية، ودي ليها وضع خاص لأنها بتمشي على القوانين المصرية أساساً.
Independency differs from one university to another, but Egyptian ones were able to achieve higher standards of it, especially after resignation of some leaders from former regime. Safa Ali, AUC-TV, Cairo.
Rugby is one of the popular sports in Europe, but in Egypt, it's mainly played in private games amongst a few universities and schools. More on this in the following report.
Not many are familiar with the game of rugby here in Egypt, but the AUC Wolves and Cairo Rugby Club are playing a friendly game in preparation for the 4th season of rugby tournaments that will begin in Alexandria between the AUC Wolves, the Alexandria Rugby Club, and the Cairo Rugby Club. Coach Mu'taz Halbouni says that rugby is slowly starting to be noticed in Egypt, but will take many years for it to be popular as football.
Rugby is in Egypt since 1980, but unfortunately it was played by expats, and that's it. It was only one team, and usually their games was against military ships and stuff like that, and it was never introduced to schools. We've seen 2 universities right now, and the AUC is number 1 pioneer in introducing rugby. We've tried to communicate with the Minister of Sports to introduce rugby into the school system, but unfortunately it didn't pick up due to one of the things is mainly the field. As you see here, the field is a soccer field.
Since there are no rugby fields in Egypt to practice on, due to the lack of recognition of the game, teams have had to play on normal football fields.
Formed since fall of 2007, but before we didn't used to have a field until we moved to the new campus. So the first 2 years, it was really hard for us to develop our team and spread awareness among the AUCNs.
With a motto like, we work as a team, we hunt as a team, we kill as a team, the AUC Wolves team players know that rugby is a rough game and might not appeal to many, and due to the game's nature, it is not as popular as football.
It's a very physical sport. Players tend to get injured a lot. Usually when some new players get injured, they don't come back. For example, in the last month, we had the rugby tryouts. Several players got injured. One dislocated his shoulder. Several sprained ankles have occurred as well.
Rugby is not a popular game in Egypt since everyone is playing football and going after football. You know, even if the handball team won a national championship, they won't care for it. But also because rugby is a tough game and it's basically spread in Europe. But it started being popular. Last year we had like 4 teams. This season we have like more than 8 teams, so it's getting on track.
Rugby isn't that popular now, but it's getting there. We're doing more events. Our national team's getting bigger, it's getting better.
Even though a limited number of international schools are introducing rugby as a friendly game among students, it is their hope for the game to become a national sport like football.
Since 1999, I believe, it started going into the foreign schools in Egypt, and high school students are starting to pick up the game. Started off with about, I believe, 4 schools, and now we're talking about 10 schools that are playing. Unfortunately, in a not organized league. It's a friendly league.
Rugby is not one of the most popular games in Egypt, but with tough players like these and enthusiastic audience, the game will slowly take a turn. This is Dalil Kredli, AUC TV, Cairo.
Earlier, we had an interview with Dr. Rashal Ibyeri, Assistant Professor of Mass Communication of the AUC, on changes that occurred in media after the revolution.
Hello and welcome to our weekly show. Rules and regulations governing the media in Egypt have always been a controversial issue. And after the revolution, the question is, did the media in Egypt change? Today we are hosting Dr. Rashal Ibyeri, Assistant Professor of Mass Communication at the American University in Cairo, to discuss this issue. Welcome, Dr. Rashal.
Welcome.
2 weeks ago, an official warning have been sent by the Free Zone, the General Authority of Investment at the Free Zone, sending official warning to On TV and Dream TV regarding the political content of their program. As a media expert, how you view this decision?
Well, this decision is not any different from previous decisions as well and previous warnings that happened. In fact, the military rule supersedes the law and supersedes the previous basically known practices actually. Military just imposes their power because it's a state of exception or a state of emergency basically during the military role. So this is why, for example, they have the right to issue laws, which is usually the job of the People's Assembly when there is a government, but because there is no government, the military council is exercising its power on things that they're not supposed to exercise power on, basically.
Does any clause or any item in the media law in Egypt or the laws governing the media in Egypt say that the government have the right to send official warnings for TV channels regarding their political content, and the word political content is general? Does anything or any item in the law specify this word and put it in a certain context?
Well, in normal conditions, when there is a government, real government, not an interim government, usually this is not allowed because the media by law is free in Egypt. However, because there is military rule, and the military rule means that they have rights that override their normal rights, they exercise these rights during that time, basically.
Yes, and previously, actually, the Egyptian Minister of Information said that he's no longer going to offer licenses for new private satellite channels. He said they are going to freeze licenses. Do you think this is a sound decision at the right time?
Well, of course, it negates everything that has to do with revolution. It negates the essence of the revolution. The government, the current government or the interim government, is supposed to be basically to meet the requests of the revolution, which include mainly the right to free media expression. However, all this is a violation of this right for which the revolution in fact occurred. So it is not supposed to do that. Even though they give themselves the right to do it, they're not supposed to do it.
And also Jazeera Mubashir, I think it was, their office was raided twice by the security officers, and they said that under the pretext, the office was raided, and they said that they didn't have any licenses or permits to operate in Egypt or operate through the Nilesat. So do you think really Jazeera Mubashir was operating unofficially in Egypt? And even if they do so, the government has the right to raid the office in such way that was done actually?
Well, in fact, if a channel has been working in Egypt for years and years, and there is no objection about that from the side of the government, neither the previous government nor the current government, then it has the right to work. They are given a green light to work, even if it's not a written permit. So whether they have something written or not, this simply means that they were not given it, or they were not allowed it, just to keep the right to close them or to raid their office, as it's happening nowadays. So I tend to guess that. I'm not sure, of course.
Yeah, but some of the columnists in newspapers actually left the columns blank, and they say it's a sign of a strike against what they called military censorship. And they are referring actually to the ban of publishing the testimony of Field Marshal Tantawi in Mubarak's trial. Do you think the military, by law, has the right to say that this issue or this testimony will not be published, and it's banned to be published in Egypt? Does anything in the law that gives right the military to do so?
Of course not, and especially at this time, it's not possible to do so, because this is the time of transparency. This is the time where everything that has been hidden for ages has to appear and has to be verified and has to be exposed so that people would know the truth. Because everything in the past that was hidden, it turned out to be fake afterwards and turned out to be corrupt. So people need to know so that to make sure that there is no corruption occurring anymore. So of course there is no, they have no right to ban speeches or to ban testimonies. In fact, actually, the jury itself is supposed to be in public, and they stopped that, and that was also another mistake, because the people have the right to watch the whole thing, not just the testimony.
In other Western democratic countries, the military does the military actually impose censorship on certain documents or in certain publications or even on media outlets, and they ban or they don't allow publishing for certain classified documents? Do they have specifications actually in the law for certain? For instance, they can say, yeah, these are classified documents, you're not allowed to publish, or you are not allowed even to broadcast certain issues.
I will tell you, and it's a very sad reality, but in fact, even in the States, even in the UK, the government always gives themselves the right to control and ban things from getting published. In fact, during the attack on Iraq in 2003, the US and the UK government agreed on a media policy that basically prevent journalists from in fact covering the war. Basically, so what happened is that journalists had to join the military escorts rather than going and report by themselves. They banned everything that would harm their interest, and they consider this as a part of the policy for the war itself. In fact, as well, many editors and many journalists will welcome this practice during wartime, and they consider it an issue of national security. So they don't even feel offended for it, especially in the US. In the UK, journalists actually had a strike about that, but still at the end of the day, only what the government allowed is the thing that got aired at the end.
So the military had the right in certain countries, or even in countries all over the world, to ban publishing and to control media to some extent under the name of the national security, and if they see that it interferes with the safety of the country.
Well, they give themselves right, but if you return to the laws in this country, you wouldn't find anything that allows them to do this by law. In fact, actually, the UN Charter, basically for free media expression, gives the right to anyone to write and publish and run any information that they receive, as much as it's documented and it's true. So all these countries, of course, have signed the UN thing. So.
And you know, the recent events that occurred in Maspero, the incidents actually and the clashes that erupted there, how do you see the state TV cover the issue? And did you sense really that there is a change in the coverage of the Egyptian TV? And I'm talking specifically of Egypt's state TV. How did you view it as a media expert? Did you feel difference? Did you sense any difference actually?
Well, in fact, state TV was a disaster. I am so depressed of the way that they covered the event, because they were supposed to be objective, at least. Nobody told them to sympathize with the people dying, but don't basically incite violence. Don't tell other people to go down and save the military. It's I don't know if I don't know what is by law is inciting of violence, but if this is not inciting of violence, what would it be?
Yeah. And after the revolution, the Egyptian Radio and Television Union actually it's appointed members in its. They formed and established a board of trustees, and they appointed some members. But actually, it's have been felt that their role is not clear in governing the media in Egypt. In addition to that, actually, Mr. Hafiz al-Mirazi, Mr. Hamdi Andil, and recently, yesterday, Mrs. Farida al-Shubashi submitted the resignation from this board of trustees. Does this have an indication, or does this seem that the board of council, the board of trustees, actually, there is something going on inside? Are they really practicing rules, or are they going to set rules to govern the media in Egypt?
Well, actually, assaults against journalists and against media entities and all those sorts of practices by the army and by the military actually is totally unacceptable, and it simply explains why these people had to resign, because if you are in a position and you don't have a control on what to do, then your position is pointless. So I think probably the same applies for the entire government, for the ministers and for the prime minister. They don't have any power; they're just there. But at the end of the day, it is the decision of the military in every issue. So,
Dr. Rachel Ibieri, Assistant Professor of Mass Communication at the American University in Cairo, thank you for accepting our invitation.
That's all for today, and thank you for watching.